Welcome back to Asking for Knowledge. This is episode 13. And if you're wondering why I tell the episode number every time, I am on a quest to 21 episodes. To give you a little background on that, if I complete 21 episodes, I would be in the top 1% of all podcasters. So that's what we're shooting for, is to get to 21. Now, obviously, we want to continue on. We want to keep talking about these things, but that's what we're shooting for, get to the top 1%. And that's irrelevant for me as it relates to you. But what is relevant is the fact that most people give up and quit before they ever get there. So if you think about it, how many people start a podcast and actually do 21 episodes? So once we hit number 22, we'll stop counting at that point, but certainly we'll continue on. But again, it speaks more to most people's lack of follow through than it really does anything about me. So anyway, random side note, I don't even know why I said that, but anyway, welcome back. As I said, this is episode 13, and today's topic is what most people get wrong about discipline. So three ideas that most people get wrong when it comes to discipline. If this is your first time listening, we have 3 episode types. This is Asking Out Loud, where me, your host, Jeff Mabe, discusses whatever's on my mind, just things that I've encountered, interesting things that I've come across, and ideas and things like that. And so this is another version of that. The second is Ask the Experts. This is where we're going to bring on folks from all different types of fields related to youth baseball or athletics in general, maybe even parenting. I don't know how far we'll go with this, but these are the folks that are in specific fields and can bring specific knowledge related to different topics that are relevant to us as parents and to our athletes. And then lastly is Asking Your Parents. And this can be a combination of episode types in the sense of sometimes it might be us speaking about results of surveys that we've done to parents or conversations that we've had with parents, or it could be we actually bring parents on. And I've got a couple folks targeted for the first episode of that, or the first episode where we bring somebody on because they played in college, played baseball in college, have sons that are playing in college, and then have sons that are still coming through. So I hope we can get them on. That'll be great. And if not, we'll bring other folks on. But those are the 3 types of episodes. Again, if it's your first time, our goal with this whole podcast is to get to everything first principles as it relates to youth baseball. So digging deep, figuring out what's going on with youth baseball. How do we make sure that what we're doing for our kids is the best thing for them and helps them enjoy the game. And our core focus at Asking for Knowledge is to help kids master the mentality, mechanics, and joy of baseball. We want the game to be fun. We want kids to maximize their potential in it. And that's really what we're here for, and nothing else. So that's the goal. That's who we are as an organization. And that's what we do as a podcast. So anyway, I want to talk today on what people most often get wrong about discipline. And I guess making sure I define that first. I'm not talking about discipline in terms of like punishment or disciplining your kids. I'm talking about the act of discipline when it comes to a process of improvement. So just to be clear, that's the type of discipline that we're talking about. If you came on today to hear about whether you should spank your kids or not, it won't be that. Certainly got my own opinions there, but it is not about that. So think about discipline when it comes to weight loss, completing a project, making a certain grade in a class, changing some behavior of some type. And the reason I'm talking about it is because it is an essential part of any process designed to improve performance. So whether it's academics, whether it is in sport or athletics or any other endeavor that humans can pursue, discipline is going to play a role at some point in the process. So I think it's important to talk about it, and this certainly won't be the last time that we talk about it, I'm sure. And if you hear a little rasp in the voice today, some kind of sinus thing going on. Hopefully it is audible. If not, I think there's a transcript version somewhere, so you can read it instead of listen to it. Anyway, so giving you some background on my perspective, and I don't know if I've shared this, but I spent about 5 years as a full-time CrossFit gym owner. Worked with, I don't know, maybe 150-ish, 200 clients over that 5-year period. And so during that, I was able to walk and help people through. Had a couple 100+ pound weight loss stories or success stories, and then several 50+, and then many 20 to 30. And so I'm sharing that just to give you a background of, like, not only have I experienced discipline in my own life, but I've also seen it play itself out in others as well, making pretty drastic transformations. So I've gotten to see the physical impact, but also, some of the psychological things that people go through and that sort of thing. So that's my perspective, just to give you an idea there. So first and foremost, I think where people, and maybe it's more of a don't realize it versus getting it wrong, but the first thing is it starts with belief. And I'll say, adults and kids are really no different. There was a famous study now done by Stanford where, and you've probably heard it referenced, you may not have, but it was called the marshmallow test. So effectively what they did is they put a marshmallow in front of this kid, and they would tell them, they would walk out of the room. But before they did, they would say, hey, if you can wait and not eat this marshmallow, you will get a second one. So you can eat the one now. They would tell them that. They would say, hey, if you eat this right now, you can do that. It's fine. It's not a problem. But if you wait, you'll get two. And initially, the study showed that the kids that could hold out for that second marshmallow had better outcomes in the future. So higher SAT scores, better stress management, in some cases lower obesity and lower rates of substance abuse. So there was something to it. These kids that could kind of delay gratification, it was something that correlated to higher success rates later in life. Now, as they always do with these studies, they did find in future studies that there were also other factors, such as the child's home life, their socioeconomic status, and really the trust they had in the adults in their life. So the influential adults around them. There were other things that were related to that outcome that led some kids to be able to trust that they were going to bring a second one back, and other situations, right? So there were some other contributing factors, not just that some kids had the discipline and others, didn't. It wasn't quite that simple. But long story short, you can quickly run through this in your mind and think about the fact that it would take, a child would have to be able to trust an adult to be willing to wait for the second marshmallow. Because if they had experiences in their life where they were constantly let down, they were constantly lied to, trust was broken, they would have no confidence that the adults in their life, and in this study, I would have to assume it was a stranger. I did not look that deep into the study, but, why would they believe this stranger? They've got one in front of them, might as well go ahead and take it. And so I say that to start out with, if we want our kids to learn discipline, we have to cultivate the belief that it works. And to be successful in cultivating the belief that it works, then we need to keep our promises with our children when we say we're going to do things. We can't expect our kids to believe, we're telling them, hey, you follow this process, you're going to get better. You're going to achieve success in whatever field it is. If they can't trust us to follow through with our word, why would they believe us when we tell them these things? So again, belief is important when it comes to discipline, but there's a layer below that when it comes to parenting. And it's one of those things, like, I think finding a way, and this is really a kind of a separate piece of this, but finding a way to emphasize a process that you're going through with your kids, if you've listened for 10 seconds, one of my recommendations in every podcast is to find a way to model things for your kids, to be the model for the kids, not always just talking about it, not the preacher to them and always telling them what they should and shouldn't do, but being the one that models it. And, again, this is one of those. So starting out, do what you say you're going to do. But then second, involve them in something that you're working on, whether it's a project, whether it's a responsibility that you have, maybe it's some other goals. Maybe it is your weight loss journey or something like that. You're trying to eat healthier, trying to work out consistently. Involve them in that. Tell them what your struggles are. Tell them, hey, I really need to work out today, but I am not feeling it. And then go work out. Don't allow them to see that it is a very human experience to not want to do something. And bonus points if you make it into a fun story. So if you find ways to share that. But at a greater level, belief systems are the software that our lives run on. So, we got kind of our hardwiring, but software belief is really like the software. It's the program. It's how we define the world. And we want to make sure that we are building that software for our kids so that it functions appropriately and gives them an accurate view of the world. And what they believe about discipline is monumental in terms of helping them get what they want in their lives. And as long as we cultivate that belief, and again, the belief beneath the belief, they can use that the rest of their lives. So I talked last time about process, about the price of excellence. And this is kind of that bolt-on piece to this, to say that if you want to be the best in the world at something, discipline is going to be required, right? At a certain point, you have to go past this very childlike idea of dreams and goals and really get down to work. And it's at that point that you're going to need discipline to do it. And they got to have the belief that it's going to work first and foremost. So finding those ways to help them understand this. Quick story. And by now I hope that I hate sharing personal stories because, first of all, I don't like using my kids as examples. If they were to listen to this and feel like my dad's, he's sharing everything about our lives on the internet or whatever. I don't want to be that dad. But on the other side of that too, I also realize each situation is unique. So, my fear is these stories are anecdotal and, you say, well, my kid's different, my situation's different. And I get that. But I'm going to share this anyway. So I took my two sons up last week to shoot some archery, and we're shooting, and my middle son just out of nowhere just says that he didn't like working out anymore. And this is a kid that has consistently for literal years, 3 to 4 years now, has consistently worked out. He does it on his own. He decides his schedule for the day and when he's going to do it, and he just does it. We don't ask him. We don't remind him. He just does it. And so for him to say that he didn't want to work out anymore was pretty surprising for me. And so I didn't really want to get into it while we were shooting, and so I just kind of let it go. And later I came back around when my wife and I were together with him, and I was just like, hey, man, you mentioned that you didn't like working out anymore. What's that about? Now, there's another side of this because I write the workouts, and the workouts that he does are available for other athletes. And so my fear was he was going to be like, these workouts are terrible. They're boring. I don't like them. They hurt, whatever. Like there was going to be something wrong with the workouts. And then I was going to have to, go in and really work on making these better, which I'm always in the process of doing anyway. But, when your own son comes back and says, hey, this is bad, so there's this fear in the back of my mind. So really, I needed to get to the bottom of it, not just from a dad understanding a child standpoint, but I wanted to make sure that these workouts were something that kids could enjoy and participate in and that sort of thing. So, again, it was a twofold question coming back into it, but he said, I said, what is it? Why are you not enjoying it? And he said, well, it's not really that I don't enjoy it. It's just that I'd rather be doing other stuff. And so, there was a bit of relief there, as I said, related to the workouts themselves. But I said, so you're not thinking about quitting? And he said no, because he knows, like, it's his option, it's his choice. Mom and dad, can make recommendations. Mom and dad can present circumstances. Mom and dad can answer questions, but mom and dad can't do the work. And, eventually mom and dad lose influence. And so, as early as possible, we have emphasized that he has the choice. And so, when I said, you're not interested in quitting, he said, no. And it was almost like he was kind of like offended that I said that thinking that he might quit doing it. And so, well, why wouldn't you quit? If you don't enjoy it, if you'd rather be doing other stuff, why wouldn't you quit? And he said, I'm not going to quit because I know it makes me better. So again, let's not maybe overemphasize. I want to make sure I'm not the proud dad parenting his son's, perspective. But I want to be real about this, right? How many 11-year-olds understand the distinction and the importance of discipline to the point that they can verbally acknowledge that they don't like doing it, but they're not going to quit because they know that it contributes to something else that they enjoy doing? And I told him, again, proud dad moment for a minute there, but I told him, I was like, dude, this is really cool. Really cool that you understand the connection between the hard work and how it contributes, because you now have the ability for anything in your life, whether it's a writing project or a business or anything that you can possibly think of. You understand that you're going to not feel like doing it sometimes, but that if you want to improve, sometimes you just have to do the thing that you don't want to do. Now, certainly we want it to line up. We want it to be intrinsically rewarding for them. But there are just times where you just got to just grind your way through, despite the fact that there's a million other things that you could be doing. And it's obvious to all of us, because I think a lot of us complain about it, but our kids have more distractions and more opportunities than we could ever fathom to capture their attention, to take up their time. So, it's not getting easier. So the thing here is we just have to understand we've got to build that belief. We've got to build that belief with our kids, highlighting the process and making sure that we're not getting caught up in one-liners, about hard work. I think I mentioned last time, talent beats, or hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I mean, that sounds really cool, but like let's make sure we get deep enough with that kids make the distinction. Because I've heard a lot of coaches say that to kids, and the kids, they don't do work on their own. And, I won't say anything about the coaches, but like it's just one of those things. Like, let's make sure that it's modeled and it's presented in real life and it doesn't turn into slogans. Next thing. Probably the biggest thing that we get wrong about discipline, and I've just seen this too much in my own life and in other folks' life, but it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be a slog to try to grind through and grit your way through it. And unfortunately, that's the perception that most people have, is discipline. Is it's like, oh, it's a tough workout, or it's a diet, or, it's just some really difficult, hard thing. And, you've probably figured this out by now, but I tend to look at things a little bit differently. And I guess you could call my approach lazy man's discipline. Because I've had people throughout my life, oh, you're so disciplined. And I'm like, no, I'm really not. And the reason I say that is because I don't want to fight battles with myself. So my focus is, how do I structure things in such a way that I do not have to fight my own nature? I don't want it to be painful. I don't want to have those struggles. So what could I do? How can I do it so that I don't have to struggle through it? And again, this is one of those things I wish I had learned as a young student. Oddly enough, I probably am not sitting here on this podcast right now had I figured it out, but it took me a lot longer in life to understand this. And what I mean by is that, I always struggled working ahead, putting everything I had into academics, because I had no perspective on what it could do or what it could produce. It was like, oh, it's just it's the thing I've got to do, and I've got to do it good enough, to get into college, and then I got to do college good enough to get into, or to get a good job. And I really wish I'd had this perspective, because now I think I have some tactics and things that I understand so much better that would have helped me work through that. But unfortunately, I didn't have the perspective, and it's I talk about not doing one-liners, but it's that experience is the thing. What is it? It's when you get the lesson before the test, or I don't know. That's terrible. Anyway, let's move on. So giving you an example, let's say that I need to prepare for this podcast. Now, I love to coach. I love to teach. It is one of my favorite things to do in life, but my body, my brain usually have different ideas about how I could spend my time. So, plopping down and typing up and getting my notes ready for a podcast it's rarely easy. Usually what happens is I'll get a flurry of inspiration, and I'll write some choppy notes, and then they'll sit there for a period of days until I can force myself to come back around and finish it out and then actually press record. But it's a battle. It's a battle for me. There's all these cool things out there called Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and family, and you name it. There's tons of distractions ready and available that most of the time seem much more appealing than sitting down and writing a podcast that you're not sure if people are going to listen to or not. So, like probably most of you, I'm most inclined to entertain myself. But the podcast is important. Reaching you to help reach your kids in some small way is important to me. So how do I do it? What do I do? Again, anecdotal. So I want to be careful, but I want to present, just look at the framework versus the specifics around what I do or don't do, because your life's going to be different. You may be able to sit down and write a podcast and not have an issue. I don't know. But for me, it's a struggle. So here's how I get through it. So first of all, I don't have cable of any type. No Netflix, no nothing. I think we do have access to Prime Video via our Amazon relationship. So I don't have those distractions. Second is I use a browser extension called BlockSite, and any website that doesn't contribute to the things that I'm working on, the projects, the different things, I am blocked from outside of certain periods. And so, I can't even get to them on the computer. And then on my phone, I have an app called ClearSpace. BlockSite is the extension on the web browser. And then ClearSpace is an app I use on my phone, which restricts my access to whatever apps I want it to restrict my access to. But, in this case, it's specifically Twitter, but 20 minutes a day. And I have to do a breathing exercise. Well, I don't have to do the exercise, but the phone walks me through before I can access it. So it gives me that pause in between clicking it, so it reduces that impulse. And I can't tell you how many times I've clicked it, and it's like, okay, do your deep breath in, out. And then it's like, are you sure you want to use it? And I can't tell you how many times I'm just like, no, I don't want to use it. And I go away. Whereas, in the past, it was just, you're in there and you're open and you're scrolling before you even know what happens. So super helpful there. Another part is routine. So for almost a decade, I've gotten up every day at 4 o'clock, 4 a.m. And reason being is that time just allows me undistracted time, without feeling like I'm taken away from family or other responsibilities, to work on the things that I'm interested in, the things that I want to do. It might be reading, it might be other things, but either way, it is nobody's asking for anything at that time of day. And so it helps me. And then if I have a specific task, I've got a kitchen timer. And so I'll say, hey, I want to at least work 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it is. And I will turn that timer on. And the only thing I'm allowed to do when that timer is running is whatever that task is. And that was an old, I think Jerry Seinfeld was the original of that. He would sit in a room with a pen and a piece of paper or a pad, and, all he could do was write jokes. And so there was nothing else in the room. There was nothing else. And so he could stare into space. And some days I do that. Some days my brain just goes, but you could stare into space. But the only thing you can actually do besides that is whatever the task is that you're working on. So, again, not setting myself up as an example to follow. I'm just here to present ideas that doing it this way to me doesn't feel painful. So it's not me, unrestricted browser, web browser, unrestricted phone, and then me just trying not to pick it up and not to think about it. It's all set up. And, again, maybe it's from a diet perspective, right? The best way is not, you always hear it, not have the stuff in the house. If you physically can't eat it, then it can't be a temptation. So don't fight those battles. Look at routines or structures that can help you kind of get through that initial resistance. So how does this translate to kids? Well, for them, we have to figure out a way to make things interesting. And again, this is where I go back to process. This is where I go back to that first concept of belief. So when they have writing, math, reading assignments that they are resisting, I always try to remind them of the cool things they can do with the knowledge they'll gain or how the process applies to something they're interested in. I got this concept from a guy named Naval Ravikant. He's an angel investor, and kind of a philosopher type. But, his thing was always read what you love until you love to read. And I really try to encourage that with my kids. I'm like, hey, just find the thing that you just kind of can lose yourself into, right? Because you probably won't pick up a math textbook and just not be able to put it down. You probably won't pick up, lessons on English and just not be able to stop learning your English and your writing and your other skills. So you got to find those things that you can connect with it. And, we're the same way as adults, right? So it's like, hey, I don't want to feel like crap, so maybe I should eat better and exercise, right? We have that perspective, but kids don't have that. So we've got to present it for them. We've got to kind of show them what the outcomes can be and how these different things can benefit their lives. And now all of a sudden it's not a thing that they need to suffer through. It's something that they can actually enjoy. And I've just found in my life the best way to win a fight is to never get in one. So for yourself, for your kids, set up routines, set up processes that remove the things that distract or the things that take away or the things that don't contribute. Make it easy. Do the lazy man's discipline. Probably a story for another day, but I think if I have had any success at anything, it's probably has a lot to do with laziness, because I will work really hard to find a way to not work hard in the future. So all these, I know it probably sounds like a lie. Oh my gosh, this guy's a nut. He's a nut job, but it's just much easier to me not to fight and just not to have access. So before we get to the third and final idea I want to share with you, think about maybe hopping on Amazon, think about hopping on Audible and get a copy of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Really, really good book that lays this process out, the process of either starting good habits or stopping bad habits. And it is the clearest, simplest framework I've ever come across for, again, either putting in or taking away habits. So good and bad, depending on what's needed. It gives you a very simple process of doing that. And we'll probably dig deeper into that book in the future for those that may not be readers. But that's another one. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg is also another really good book. It's a little bit different. It's not as much from a personal, practical standpoint, but really is interesting in showing how habits work and how they contribute and that sort of thing. But Atomic Habits, going back to that for just a quick second, atomic is the idea. It's kind of a double meaning, the name, in the sense that atomic is like atoms, so really, really small particles. And it's kind of, again, double meaning in the sense of atoms being small particles, but when we think atomic, we think of huge explosion, right, with the atomic bomb. And so it's kind of like, hey, these are both really small, but also hugely impactful. And kind of brings us to our final point, and that's that small wins over time create big wins. And the reason this is important is that we live in a world where flashy things rule the day. And I hesitate to give examples, but in terms of weight loss, like you just see there's a ton of stuff out there where it would appear that these transformations took place overnight and were just so simple and easy and quick and fast. And rarely is that the case. It's usually, even in those circumstances that appear that way, the chances are that it was an incremental step by step process. And so we don't get to see, we see a before and after, or we hear about the people that, now all of a sudden their business is exploding and they are doing really well, and we don't see the 10 or 20 or whatever years that it took to create that outcome. So when it comes to our kids, there are healthy and unhealthy ways to communicate this idea to kids, because kids typically don't have a long-term perspective. They want what they want when they want it, and usually they want it now. So expecting kids to be disciplined it can be an exercise in futility. And to expect your children to set a goal and then develop a process to get there is extremely rare for that very reason. Because they don't have the picture in their heads of the future. And so thinking of, hey, I want to be this, and this is how I get there, it is typically not natural. So how do we reinforce the idea that they need to consistently stack up these small wins in order to achieve the big wins? One suggestion here, I believe, is to capitalize on moments when your kids say they want something. And so it would look like just meeting the moment and saying, okay, well, how would you get that? Right. So, let's say a kid says, hey, I want to hit my first over the fence homer. Okay. Well, how would you go about doing that? What do you think you would do? What would the steps be? And chances are you'll get some type of canned response, like hard work. Hard work beats talent. Whatever. Sorry. I keep going back to that one. I just think it's funny. Do my drills every day. But don't let them off the hook with this. Ask them to get more specific. because hitting every day may not actually help them if they're not hitting in a way that is improving themselves. Just hitting them in and of itself is not enough to do it, right? It's got to be in a specific direction. You got to be learning different ways, to use your body. Maybe it's getting your legs into it. There's all different types of things. I won't get down a rabbit trail there, but it's helping them get more specific and step by step on what that really means. It stops and no. What specifically could you do today? Okay, it's T-work, and maybe you watch a video online, from a coach or a hitting instructor or something like that, and then you go do that drill. What specifically could you do tomorrow? Not work hard, not hit every day. Get super specific. Ask them to think back. Okay, what are the things you did, when you had success, right? You hit the ball farther. It seemed like you were hitting the ball farther when you did your T-work a couple days a week outside of practice. Okay, well, let's go back to that, and let's maybe add another day, right? Okay, well, what specifically were you doing? What were you trying to accomplish while you were doing it? And really getting down into the nitty-gritty about those incremental, those atomic, those tiny little steps that build to it. So if it is an over-the-fence home run, we can ask the question, okay, well, how many home runs you think are hit where the ball's not hit flush with good contact on the bat? Well, probably not many. Okay, so maybe the goal right now is we need to hit more balls flush. And then we say, well, okay, well, what's, maybe we're grounding out a lot or hitting ground balls. Maybe not grounding out. Maybe we're hitting a lot of ground balls. Well, how many ground balls have you ever seen fly over the fence? Well, none, right? Some have gone under on some of the fields that aren't, the fences aren't as high quality or maybe a little older. But, never seen a ball roll out of the stadium. So we probably need to work on getting the ball in the air first. Okay, well, let's talk about hitting it out of the infield in the air, right? Let's back into the next logical steps so that we have a specific plan, and then within that specific plan, we can win every single day. There's a gentleman that I love his content. I don't get to watch it as much anymore. His name's Travis Mash. He's a college football player and then ended up getting into powerlifting, and I think he set some world records. Not 100% sure, but he had this concept of maxing out every day. And the idea was that you would have this whole catalog of different lifts, and so what you would do is pick one, on any given day and max it out. And maybe it's 10 reps, maybe it's 15 reps for my folks that are in the fitness game or training game, being like, you max out every day, that's stupid and irresponsible. No, it's not like that. It's not a 1 rep max with a bunch of guys screaming at you. It could be a 10 rep. It could be all different types of things and all different types of movements. But the point of the matter is, every time you took yourself to the gym, you experienced some type of personal best. And so it created this feedback loop to see that you were continuing to improve, you were continuing to grow, you were continuing to progress. And so that's really what we need to begin to create with our kids. Now, it's easier with baseball, I think, than probably some of the other things, but the point of this whole thing is that's how you get there. That's how you get there every single day. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's, what do you want? How do you build a plan to get there? And then you execute. I feel like I've gotten a little bit off topic, but the point of this is those small wins add up. And there is tons of literature out there that talks about this process and the importance of setting goals right on the edge of our capability. And the reason is we need it to be just right on the edge because that pushes us to achieve it, but it's not so far out of our reach that we give up before we get there. So it produces a state called flow where we can really push into those goals and challenge ourselves. It's like the best mix. And I don't remember, there's a percentage, maybe like 7%, 14%, something. There's some percentage of like right on the edge of our capabilities. I'll have to find that one out and talk about it later. But the point of it all is that these small wins, these psychological wins, or these wins, the psychological impact is significant. Because if my goal is to hit the ball over the fence, I don't have to hit the ball over the fence tomorrow. Maybe I just hit a round of BP and I hit 7 out of 10 balls out of the infield. Well, man, I could probably do that. And then maybe it's 8 out of 10, and maybe it's 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, right? And eventually I get there and I realize that, okay, I took this step. Now I can just take the next one. Small wins. Small wins. We started back practice this week. And one of my favorite things to do, and now I can do it much better with the HitTrack system, which basically, if you're not familiar with that system, it basically measures kind of the angle that the ball comes off the bat. It measures the speed that the ball comes off, and then it uses that information to kind of give you an amount of carry. And carry meaning how far the ball will go. And so it gives us a very clear picture of the capabilities of each one of the kids. And what I love is when I can pull it up on a screen. I think we put a video online about this, but I can put it up on the screen and show these kids that there's really not that much difference between each one of them. And so it helps them understand they all have the capability. So it's no longer a matter of, can I physically produce enough force on the baseball to hit the ball out of the park? The answer is yes. That's settled. Now it's a question of, what do I specifically need to do? What steps do I need to take? How do I need to build my swing? What are the things I need to work on so that I can go from where I'm at today to experiencing that at least the first time, and then hopefully on a more regular basis? But they can see it. They can see it clearly, and they understand that, oh, yes, okay, now I have this capability. I didn't know it before. I didn't have the belief, kind of going back to the first piece. And so now we can build a process to get there. Finding those small wins reinforces the process. It helps them see. It gives them feedback, and this you can use this as an adult too. But for kids, it gives that feedback that they're moving in the right direction. I can do this because now I've seen how far I've moved, and I know it's possible. So, quick recap. First of all, build the belief. If they don't believe something will help them, they won't do it. If you don't believe something will help you, you won't do it. Willpower and gutting through is not necessary. This is the second. Doesn't have to be painful. Make it as easy as possible on yourself. Make it as easy as possible for your kids. You know, if you want your kid to hit off the tee, have the net set up, have the balls out, have their bat there, have their bat and gloves, have the tee ready, have it all right there where all they got to do is walk out there, pick it up, and start swinging, right? Make it as easy as possible. Put away, hide the iPad, hide the whatever, I don't know, the gaming systems, maybe a little easier said than done there, but just figure out those things, right? Or help them figure it out on their own, right? If they come home and they say, hey, I can't, I want to play some iPad, say, well, hey, do you think if we lock that thing up for a little bit and put it away, that might help you with this other thing that you want to do. Help them start to realize what that process can look like. Because again, if you're always doing it, then chances are those lessons may not stick. The last thing is find those small wins. Find those steps in the process and then celebrate every step along the way. So unlike popular belief, discipline does not have to be a dirty word, and it can actually be extremely rewarding when you apply it as a strategy. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, please follow or subscribe So follow, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Send it to somebody that might benefit from this one or from any other that you have enjoyed or gotten something from. Would encourage you to participate in our surveys. You can find those on the website, askingforknowledge.com. Click the surveys button, and it will take you to our most recent version, so you can fill that out. And follow us on social media. So check us out there. We'll post videos from time to time, and hope that content is valuable for you. Really appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep asking for knowledge.